EU Parliament calls for a ban on social media for child influencers, suggesting children should be at least 16 to use social media, according to MEPs. U.S. court filings claim Meta concealed causal evidence of social media. EU Parliament calls for a ban on social media for child influencers, suggesting children should be at least 16 to use social media, according to MEPs. U.S. court filings claim Meta concealed causal evidence of social media harm. Australia includes Twitch in its teen social media ban, exempts Pinterest, and CNN questions the impact of removing millions of teens from social media, noting Australia is about to experience this firsthand.
The United Nations reports that Jakarta has surpassed Tokyo to become the largest city globally. In an energy agreement with Alberta, Canada has reversed certain climate regulations. Scientists from NASA have identified small lightning strikes occurring on Mars.
Warner Music Group reaches a significant agreement with Suno, resolving a copyright lawsuit involving an AI music generator. In the UK, police will test AI agents on the 101 service.
In South Korea, Kuwang reports a data breach exposing personal information of nearly 34 million customers, with the South Korean government stating that Coupang's electronic signature key was exploited during the breach, which occurred from June to November. CISA issues a warning that spyware groups are infiltrating Signal and WhatsApp accounts. Singapore mandates Apple and Google to block government spoofing on messaging platforms. Leading consultancies halt salary increases due to AI's impact on the traditional pyramid structure. The U.S. Patent Office releases updated rules for inventions aided by AI. A survey indicates that global central banks are cautious about AI and face challenges in reducing reliance on the dollar.
China's central bank reiterates its prohibition on cryptocurrencies and highlights potential risks associated with stablecoins after a meeting involving multiple agencies. Morgan Stanley predicts that the downturn in mainland China's property market will continue until 2026. The head of Brazil's central bank states that inflation is declining because of inexpensive imports from China.
Amazon and Google introduce a multi-cloud service aimed at enhancing connectivity speed. NATO selects Google to develop an air-gapped sovereign cloud.
Australia enacts streaming quotas legislation. A milestone for screen storytelling, declares production organization. New EU law holds social media platforms accountable for financial fraud. Company behind ChatGPT attributes young boy's death to improper use of its technology.
The Economist notes that the Chinese pharmaceutical industry is on the verge of expanding internationally. Bloomberg states that a memo from October 7 by the Pentagon mentioned Alibaba in relation to military aid from China. The Chinese government is feeling uneasy about robots due to the presence of over 150 companies in this sector.
1,900 flights between China and Japan were cancelled in December due to ongoing political tensions, following a new confrontation between Chinese and Japanese Coast Guard vessels near the disputed Diaoyu Islands. In North Korea, Kim Jong-un showcased his daughter and missiles, while expressing interest in acquiring Russian jets and promising to supply new strategic assets for the Air Force. Meanwhile, Russia's sole operational launch pad for cosmonauts was damaged during a Soyuz crew launch to the International Space Station.
Costco initiates legal action against the Trump administration in pursuit of tariff refunds prior to a Supreme Court decision on their legality. Trump suggests that income taxes might be abolished soon as a result of tariffs. The EU withdraws its WTO lawsuit against China concerning the purported coercion of Lithuania.
The World Health Organization, WHO, has issued its inaugural set of guidelines concerning GLP-1s. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, plans to enforce stricter regulations on vaccines following a memo that links the COVID-19 vaccine to the deaths of children. According to the White House, former President Trump underwent an MRI as part of a preventive cardiovascular examination.
Hong Kong police detained 13 individuals on charges of manslaughter related to a fire. As additional suspect,
Trump has announced his intention to pardon former Honduran President Hernandez for his 2024 drug trafficking conviction. Former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Hasina and her niece, a British lawmaker, have both been convicted of corruption. Trump has stated that he would absolutely revoke the citizenship of certain individuals if he possessed the authority.
Denmark establishes a night watch to prevent Trump from taking over Greenland while they are asleep. Canada consents to participate in an EU initiative aimed at increasing defense expenditures. Hungary's Orbán pursues additional Russian oil and gas during discussions with Putin at the Kremlin.
Tajikistan strengthens its border defenses following cross-border assaults from Afghanistan that resulted in the deaths of 5 individuals. Ukraine focuses on targeting Russia's covert fleet as it intensifies its drone warfare efforts. In South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung suggests re-establishing communication channels with North Korea.
SpaceX claims a satellite launched by China posed a collision threat to Starlink. NASA issues a warning that nearly all future space telescope images may be compromised. NASA discovers sugars, gum, and stardust in samples collected from asteroid Bennu.
Bloomberg reports that electricity is currently impeding growth throughout the global economy. Uber is reducing its involvement with electric cars by decreasing incentives for drivers. Ford has ceased production of the F-150 Lightning and is initiating a business focused on battery storage. Denmark intends to impose significant limitations on social media usage among young individuals. Reddit initiates a legal challenge in the High Court against Australia's prohibition of social media for those under 16. Russia imposes blocks on Roblox and Apple's FaceTime in response to increasing criticism of foreign technology platforms.
A U.S. judge invalidates Trump's directive halting wind energy initiatives. Germany achieves approximately 56% of its 2025 electricity consumption through renewable sources. 6 EU member countries urge the European Union to soften the 2035 prohibition on cars with internal combustion engines.
Ukrainians initiate legal action against American semiconductor companies, alleging their products are used in Russian drones and missiles. The European Union permanently halts Russian assets to prevent Hungary and Slovakia from blocking their allocation to Ukraine. NATO's Ruta emphasizes the necessity for Europe to get ready for the magnitude of conflict similar to that experienced by their grandparents.
Nature reports that China is at the forefront of research in 90% of essential technologies, marking a significant change this century. Major automakers warn that China represents a clear and present threat to the U.S. auto industry. The Wall Street Journal comments that China's growth is occurring at the expense of the rest of the world.
The Walt Disney Company and OpenAI have reached a significant agreement to incorporate popular characters from Disney's various brands into Sora. India suggests imposing charges on OpenAI and Google for utilizing copyrighted content to train AI. Disney claims Google employs AI for extensive copyright infringement.
In Taiwan, the KMT accuses the government of censorship following the 1-year ban on China's Red Note app, which is linked to 1,700 fraud cases. Texas universities are implementing AI tools to reassess and modify how certain courses address topics of race and gender. Trump has filed a $10 billion defamation lawsuit against the BBC, claiming it defamed him by editing his speech from January 6, and the BBC has stated its intention to defend against the defamation lawsuit concerning the Panorama speech edit.
Denmark sends its final letters as the revered National Postal Service concludes. The iconic crime fighter RoboCop from Detroit officially takes his position in Motor City. The term ragebait is chosen as Oxford's Word of the Year for 2025, while Merriam-Webster selects slop as its 2025 Word of the Year.
Google announces the release of its initial AI glasses equipped with Gemini technology in 2026. China initiates a 34,175-mile AI network functioning as a single enormous supercomputer. The CEO of IBM expresses concerns that hyperscalers such as Google and Amazon will be unable to achieve profitability at their current data center expenditure rates.
Autoblog reports that a mysterious satellite outage has rendered all of Russia's Porsches inoperable, leaving hundreds of Porsche owners in Russia unable to start their cars due to a system failure. The new head of Britain's spy agency MI6 warns that Russia is exporting chaos. A Russian court has designated the anti-Kremlin punk band Pussy Riot as an extremist group.
A study on mice shows that tattooing travels into the lymphatic system, which changes the immune response. Domestic cats tend to make greeting sounds more often when cared for by men. Using indoor tanning beds increases the risk of melanoma by 3 times and causes widespread DNA mutations. The White House suggests easing fuel economy standards. San Francisco files a lawsuit against companies producing ultra-processed foods. France aims to postpone a critical vote on the EU's Mercosur trade agreement.
New York Post reports that Jared Kushner is considering Apollo and KKR to participate in Ukraine's post-war reconstruction fund, according to sources. The Senate dismisses competing Obamacare proposals. In the United States, Congress discreetly removes right to repair clauses from the U.S. military spending bill.
China imposes anti-dumping duties on EU pork but reduces the final rates. Mexico maintains 50% tariffs on Chinese products, claiming the action will safeguard 350,000 jobs. Customs reports that the collection of new Trump tariffs has reached $200 billion, and an analysis suggests the U.S. might owe businesses $168 billion if the Supreme Court rules against the Trump tariffs.
The United States denies allegations of withdrawing from the Indo-Pacific region, stating that its aid is being adjusted to address China's influence. The U.S. has given the green light to a $686 million deal for upgrading technology and supplying equipment for Pakistan's F-16 fighter jets. According to Axios, Ukraine and the U.S. are at odds over territorial issues following intense discussions. The U.S. has offered Ukraine security assurances similar to Article 5, but this is only for a limited period. Additionally, Ukraine has abandoned its ambition to join NATO, as a Trump envoy notes advancements in peace negotiations. Belarus has released notable political prisoners, coinciding with the U.S. easing some trade sanctions.
Hong Kong's leading pro-democracy party decides to dissolve after over 3 decades of activism, while Jimmy Lai of Hong Kong is found guilty on all charges in his national security trial. Far-right candidate José Antonio Cast emerges victorious in Chile's presidential election. Danish intelligence alleges that the U.S. employs economic influence to impose its will on its allies.
The U.S. military conducted strikes on 3 additional boats in the Pacific Ocean, resulting in the deaths of 8 individuals. Cuba has condemned the U.S.'s action of seizing an oil tanker near Venezuela's coast, labeling it as piracy. This event, along with the U.S.'s capture of a rogue oil tanker off Venezuela, indicates a new enforcement against the shadow fleet. Meanwhile, Russia is seeking clarification from the U.S. regarding the tanker's seizure off the Venezuelan coast. According to the Wall Street Journal, U.S. forces conducted a raid on a ship and confiscated cargo destined for Iran from China.
In the United States, the FBI has apprehended 4 individuals suspected of being members of a radical pro-Palestinian organization, who are accused of planning bombings for New Year's Eve. In response to a deadly attack on a Jewish festival that resulted in 15 fatalities, Australia is set to implement stricter gun regulations. British members of Parliament have issued a warning that the United States is adopting extreme right-wing tropes that are reminiscent